If you knew that life behind those stone walls was far darker, colder, and harsher than anyone imagined. Would you still admire medieval castles? Life in medieval castles was very different from the atmosphere imagined by the modern world. Since these castles were built for military purposes, daily life followed a demanding routine, shaped by defense needs and harsh climatic conditions. A new day meant more than simply waking up. People had to rise from uncomfortable beds filled with straw in rooms surrounded by cold stone walls. Even the beds of nobles were only slightly different, consisting of a wooden frame surrounding the straw. Windows were narrow arrow slits designed for defense, so interiors remained dim or dark for most of the day. People, especially in winter, would often sleep in the clothes they had worn the previous day and relied on layers of fabric to stay warm. Personal hygiene was limited by the conditions of the time. Water used for washing was usually just a bucket that had cooled overnight. Warm water was difficult to obtain. Some castles had primitive systems to heat water, but these were inefficient and made from unsafe materials. Soap production also took place under primitive conditions made from mixtures such as wood ash and animal fat. Higher quality soaps were rare and expensive, accessible only to the wealthy. Toilet needs made life in castles even more difficult. Nobles typically used small chambers that projected out of the castle walls, allowing waste to fall directly downward. Servants usually relied on portable pots kept in their rooms, which were emptied outside during the day by designated workers. Because a large amount of waste accumulated inside castles, cleaning was intensive and laborious. Larger castles had communal latrines, yet these areas offered no privacy, and their hygiene was far below modern standards. As the day progressed, the smells rising from castle kitchens signaled that breakfast was being prepared. Meal times revealed class differences more clearly than any other aspect of daily life. High-quality foods were prepared for nobles: fresh bread, meats, and fruits brought from distant regions. Castle servants, on the other hand, made do with simple vegetable soups, grain porridges, and leftover bread. Uneaten food from noble tables was sent to the poor. Since clean water was scarce in castles, people generally drank low-alcohol beverages. Because these drinks were boiled during preparation, they were safer and also provided extra calories. The interior of the castle, especially the Great Hall, was constantly active due to the large population and daily activities. Great halls had floors covered with layers of dried rushes spread over stone. These rushes were replaced only once a year, though fresh ones were occasionally added on top. They offered some insulation from the cold, but caused serious sanitation problems. Large fabric hangings were placed on the walls to block cold air and provide decoration, but they trapped moisture and became breeding grounds for mold and insects. Military activity was an inseparable part of everyday castle life. Men spent their days practicing archery and close combat techniques. The arrow slits in the walls were specially designed to provide defenders with a clear line of sight. Openings above the main gates allowed defenders to drop stones, boiling liquids, or similar materials on attackers. Castle staircases were built to spiral clockwise upward, giving right-handed defenders an advantage in narrow spaces. The castle community was always prepared for a potential siege. Storage rooms were kept stocked with long-lasting food supplies and materials needed for defense. Most lower-class workers in castles spent much of their day preparing food and keeping the castle clean, working almost without pause. Guards patrolled throughout the castle to maintain security. Servants carried out tasks such as cleaning noble rooms, maintaining clothing, running errands, and preparing for guests. Blacksmiths were among the busiest individuals in the castle. They repaired weapons and armor, maintained door and lock mechanisms, and even cared for metal kitchen equipment. The castle's lord was responsible for political relations, military leadership, land revenues, and local justice. The lady of the castle oversaw household and kitchen organization, managed servants, and supervised the education of children. Healthcare in castles was limited by the medical knowledge of the time. Herbal mixtures were the most common treatments, and many castles had small healing gardens used for basic ailments. Herbs with fever-reducing or soothing effects were commonly applied to simple illnesses. Surgical interventions were performed only for severe injuries. Because anesthesia did not exist, these procedures were extremely painful. Moreover, the lack of surgical knowledge and high risk of infection greatly reduced a patient's chances of survival. At night, castles were plunged into deep darkness. Candles and oil lamps were expensive, so lighting was used sparingly. Moving through the corridors was difficult and often dangerous. Narrow spaces, uneven stairs, and limited visibility increased the risk of collisions and falls. During these hours, guards patrolled in an organized manner, paying particular attention to dungeon areas. Dungeons were located in the lower sections of the castle. These spaces were not modern prisons, but rather used for short-term detention or to hold debtors under supervision. Cells were usually simple stone rooms. Some nobles were given better conditions, such as rooms with small windows or heated by wood stoves. People of lower status, however, were confined to dark, damp, and very cold cells. Prisoners were generally responsible for their own food costs. Those without family support endured harsher conditions. When the sun rose again, life in the castle resumed its cycle of tasks and responsibilities. Defense preparations, daily labor, food routines, and harsh environmental conditions shaped the lives of everyone living within its walls. Serving both as military strongholds and demanding living spaces, medieval castles became places that most clearly reflected the endurance, order, and survival struggles of medieval society. Your support means the world to us. To stay with us in our upcoming stories, how about joining our journey and becoming a part of our channel by subscribing?